Hello, everyone. Nice to see you. Happy New Year. If we didn't see each other or I didn't send you specifically the New Year. As always, I have no idea if anyone is watching or anything. So thank you, Arius. Hello. Thank you for writing down. As I say, I never know if this thing works. I actually don't know how streamer can do that, like in a proper way. At the start, at least, I need to know what is going on. Happy New Year, Simochik. Oh, Happy New Year, Zero. Nice to see you. Like you see, Zero. Zero is a professional Twitcher, is a professional streamer, and you can see that like the image things. Like he doesn't have the problem that I have every single time trying to understand if things works or not. Like that's the difference, Someone that does that professionally and not. 10 people is looking right now. Okay, I have no idea how you can know that. It's literally so weird for me. But thank you. Like you will have to teach me one of these days how to actually do that. Like I have a app, I'm paying it. Hi Alessandro, happy New Year. Okay, good to see like everyone already here. Awesome. So I will just jump into it. So once again, thank you for dedicating your time. And today we're talking about the 3C and the 4C, which is a variation of what I like is my own variation of the 3C methodology. Hi Michele, good afternoon to you. So the free C, I will say I will start with free C because there's lots of to talk about and we don't have so much time. Actually, 1 hour might seems a lot, but it's not. So the free C, which stands for camera, characters, and control. Sometimes characters. It depends. Oh, Zero. Thank you for the nice word. I'm better marketing than a streamer. Whenever you want me to help with your stream, yo, for the market. Well, you are both a great marketer and a great streamer. And I will take it. Now you've wrote it. This thing gets saved, so it's done now. You can you can like go back out of it. At least 10 people saw it from what you say, from what you saw me before. So it's done. It's brilliant. Okay. So the freezing, I will say. Sometimes it's characters. Sometimes it's character. Depends on how many players avatar do you have in your game. It really depends. But these are the freezing: camera, character, and controls. Now, why is both a philosophy and a methodology? Now, it's a philosophy because the idea, and that came from Nintendo. Now, Nintendo doesn't call this philosophy the free C. They tend to call it the Nintendo philosophy or the Nintendo way of doing or the Nintendo production style. There are really like lots of ways in which they call it. But let's say that generally speaking, is the free C. And the idea is that's in the philosophy part, not the design part, the philosophy part. The idea is that you don't do anything else into the production of the game until these three elements are perfect. The idea is that if the character, the camera, and the control works, the game is pleasant to be played. It's just like entertaining doing nothing into it. And if a game is already entertaining while doing really nothing purposeful into it, you already have a winner. That's the idea behind it. And in the philosophy of the pure Nintendo game, I'm not talking of game that gets on Nintendo console. I'm talking of proper Nintendo game like Mario. That's how they do. That's how they make their game. Like the most common example of that is Super Mario 64. Super Mario 64 remained one entire year in production in the Peach Castle, in the tutorial phase, the one that you see when you start that game. Um, Let me find it on YouTube. So just I think everyone knows Super Mario 64, but just to 100% be sure, I will just walk. I will just take it out. There we go. By the way, 4 hours to do the walkthrough. This like the streamer are insane. How they can do that? It's it's so crazy. There we go. Okay, just a second. There we go. And basically, It stays like less than a second in the Peach Castle, but okay.
It's me, Mario. Hello.
There we go. Start. New.
Okie dokie.
Come to the castle, Mario. I'm waiting for you. And the cake. There we go. Okay, this area. So this was the first area created. Of course, not to this level of detail, was in Blockout and many other things. But this was the first area. And the game stopped. They didn't progress to the production of the game until wandering around this area, jumping around with Mario, going into the water with Mario, climbing trees with Mario. All this type of stuff was fulfilling, was entertaining on its own. Until that was done, the game could not progress. And that is the philosophy behind the free scene, or at least when we are talking then as a philosophy, not as a tool of game design. It's this idea in which you never progress the game until just the fact to be able to interact in the way, in a meaningless way, interact with the game in a meaningless way, it's fun. Like, I know this is a wrong word, but that is the most generic way to say it. It's entertaining, it's pleasant. There are many ways to do that: visual feedback, audio feedback, forgiveness mechanics, and so on and so on and so on. But that is the idea, and that is the philosophy. Some game use this philosophy, some game partially use this philosophy, in the sense that maybe some game do dedicate a lot of time to the free seed. They want to make the controls, the character, and the camera perfect, but they still continue to produce, to make the game maybe in parallel. So while designers and programmers and animators are working on the free C, the other programmers are doing the engine part, or maybe level designer are doing further level in the game, and so on. So I say that as a philosophy, or at least as a production philosophy, you can take it in a stretch. Fully Nintendo, we don't go further. We even cancel the game if we don't manage to do the free C perfect. Or in a more stretched way, like, yeah, we do the free C, but we don't stress too much on it. Yes, we do the 3C, maybe a bit of the start, then at the middle, and then at the end again, and so on and so on. Of course, there are pros and cons of this philosophy. One of them is that, sure, if you can make your game feels good by doing nothing, you already have something very powerful in your hand. But at the same time, you need to have all your, how can I say, all your verbs, all your mechanics. Because let's say that later in development, in Super Mario 64, someone said, hey, it would be great if Mario could shoot. Well, that's a problem. That's a problem because, well, we didn't think that at the start of the production, and therefore we didn't tune the shooting. And now we added a new verb, and this new verb basically needs to be redone and retuned and reworked until it's perfect. So every time you're adding something, you're basically going back to square one into the free C if you go, of course, full Nintendo. Now, as not as a philosophy, but as a design tool, independently, if you really think that, hey, I should spend 2 years into the free C, or I just want to think about the free C, it's a really good design tool. And I will show you how you can use it. It's very simple. It's not hard. I will take once again Paint. So prepare to basically see how bad I draw once again. And we go. It should be on stream. Yes. Can you still see if I do that? Like, please someone write in the chat, because once again, I don't have two screens. I have only one. So when I'm on Paint, I don't know if you see. No one is writing it. So, oh, wait a second. Perfect. Fantastic. Thank you, Arius. Thank you so much. As I say, every single time, I'm not sure. So it's a bit weird. As always, writing all your question, comment, feedback, hello, whatever you want to comment, doesn't matter. I'm always happy to interact. I mean, that's the entire reason to try to do this live, is to have interaction. So first things I need is, let's pick a theme like last time, and one or more video game genre, like, I don't know, Souls-like, RPG, shooting, driving, whatever. So video games genre. Right. First come, first serve. So the first one who write in the chat wins. So or the theme or one or more video game genre. See that people is thinking. In the meantime, I prepare. So we do camera, we do character, and we do controls. Those are the three C. Let's see if someone wrote something. Okay, so the first one was Iris, who was strategic, and then Simochi, who was puzzle game. So a strategic puzzle game. Okay. Okay. Actually, okay, an RTS. Okay, RTS or with puzzle game. Okay, that's fine. So real-time strategy plus puzzle. This is the video game genre. And well, I need a theme, at least something, so we can have a kind of an idea. As I say, it can be anything, like it could be steampunk, cyberpunk, whatever you want to. It doesn't matter. I mean, I have Bioshock. I guess Bioshock is, technically speaking, a variation. Steampunk is a mix of steampunk and dieselpunk in some way. Well, just come on. First come, first serve. Otherwise, I will just go random and I will just. God, it's so ugly. Every time I see it, it's so ugly. I'm sorry that I could write it better. Actually, I will do it. Well, in the time when I'm waiting for the theme, I will just go here and do real-time strategy plus puzzle. There we go. Okay. And theme. Okay, so Chick said steampunk looks fine. And then there was modern, like XCOM. Well, in this case, I say first come, first served. So Simochick, once again, probably butchering your nickname. So steampunk, cool. That's fine. Okay, so we have a steampunk RTS puzzle game. It's fine. Like, it reminds me of Codename Steam. Well, Codename Steam is a turn, but yeah. Steampunk. There we go. Okay, so when we're doing as a methodology, not as a philosophy, but just thinking the game to better understanding the game, we have to go in this direction. So we always have to follow camera is the first one, character is the second one, and control is the third one. That is very simple, and the reason is logic. In order to know what kind of character we have, we need to know the camera, because of course, top-down camera, bird view camera, isometric camera, third-person camera, close, far, first-person camera, second-person camera, all these type of things change the type of character. When we have the character, we can interact with the game, and when we can interact with the game, we need to control. We need to actually input. So that's kind of like the logic. So the main things that we have to know is, first of all, we need to know the type of camera. We need to know what kind of camera is. Now, usually the type of camera that we can have in games are very common, and they are actually horror team could be interested. Okay, well, if you want to change it into horror, since you won the vote, we can do it. Okay, let's go and go horror. There. Okay, so I was saying camera. Camera can be usually first person, third person, bird view, isometric. Okay, so make it a little difficult. We need at least two different camera, isometric and third person. Okay, that's fine. I like the challenge. So in this game, we're gonna have the isometric, and we're going to have the first person. Now, as you can see, and this is why it's a methodology, we are already creating a game. we made an arbitrary decision, but it is fine to have isometric and first person as camera. Now we also have to go into further detail. What kind of isometric we have? It could be far away, close away. It could be, sorry, it's the part, far away and close away. It could be dynamic, so we zoom in, zoom out. Same goes for first person. Do we have the zoom? We don't have the zoom. We have some first person F, like we see the body. If I go down like here, can I see the body? Or I'm floating in space. Can I go 180 and 180, or I'm more locked to like 680, 80, or even less, 60, 60? All these elements need to be expressed. Let's see if someone wrote something. No. Okay. In this case, if you don't wrote anything, I gone to the side. So let's say isometric. Let's say it's dynamic. Let's make things difficult. It's dynamic. And in first person, let's make it not terrible. So 120 vertical degree. So we can go like kind of like this. Not fully 180. And I will say, since it's an horror game, we should also have a full body. So we can see kind of like the Carter body. Full body. Now, another element that is important, and we are still in the camera, is if we have any special feature. Special feature. What I mean by special feature could be things like, do we have a fisheye effect? Do we have a bubble effect? Does the screen shake? Do we plan to have any, I don't know, cinematic effect on the camera? So like in movies. Do we plan to do anything weird with the camera? Anything that we plan to make it weird, we should write in here. Now, I will say we definitely have some camera shake. Some shake. Since it's an horror, I think camera distortion is also good. Kind of like fisheye or reverse fisheye, some weird inclination, so camera distortion. Camera distortion. Also, we're probably going to need to have some camera shake, camera distortion. We probably need to have how it's called, camera filters. Some filters, because it's an horror, so maybe blood, this kind of stuff. So camera filters. There we go. There could be other stuff, but let's do that. So then we have to say if we have some camera movement, some specific camera movement. Now, lens effect, yes, lens effect. Actually, very good suggestion. Absolutely, lens effect, very good. Yes, can be really, really nice to have lens effect. So, lens effect. As always, feel free to write, chat, whatever. Camera movement. What I mean by camera movement is, let's take God of War 4, so the one before Ragnarok. They decided to have no camera cut. So the camera moves basically in a very organic 360 things. Maybe our camera can do that. Maybe our camera cannot do that. Now, since we are in first person and we already reduce the vertical to 120, we can't really have many camera movement, crazy camera movement, but we also know that we have an isometric camera. So maybe for the isometric camera, we can have camera movement. So I will say camera panel. So we can probably move the camera in some way. Camera panel. Camera panel. Panel. And I don't know, something else probably came out. See if someone has a suggestion for this. No. Okay. Now, finally, the last element that we need for defining the camera is if is if we have any camera philosophy. Camera philosophy is basically anything that we kind of want to imitate for the camera. I don't know, if you watch, for example, many movies, you might notice that certain type of directors tend to have specific style of camera, like, oh yeah, I want everything divided into third, or I want to use the rule of third, or I don't know, I never shoot beneath I don't know, this line of the body. uh, it can be useful. It's very specific. It can be useful because if you are simulating, maybe you are doing a game based on an IP, you want to simulate that camera, or maybe you just have your own philosophy and you want to import it. So Simo says, rotate the camera around a target, zoom in and zoom out. Yes, actually it makes perfect sense for the ISO camera. So zoom in and out. And also we need rotation. Probably 360 rotation. Yes, but it's the best way. 360 rotation. Rotate. I don't know, for example, Stanley Kubrick has his own very specific way to framing things into the camera. For simplicity and time reason, since we're already halfway, I will say we don't have a camera philosophy. Just for simplicity reason. You can have a camera philosophy. Now, something very important. Why is a methodology? Because each of these elements that we already described here, each one of these things is a part of the game and is a design doc. Each of the things that we described here is a design doc. We need to write them into a design documentation, explain them, what we want to achieve it, how it's done. And of course, each of these things is a feature that will be implemented. And so we already kind of have a list of features for this game. So as you see, in like 20 minutes, we basically already have 3 months worth of feature for this game without even going into the kata. Now let's move to the kata. Now the kata is divided mainly into the verbs or mechanics. Then we have the unique selling point / ego, or ego, I guess. I'm talking in English. And the depth. This is very important. Now, the verbs are all the things that our character can do into the game. Now, since we are this weird mixture of an RTS and a puzzle game with an horror, we need to think what the player does in this game. What is the verbs? Now, in case I never explained before why I'm using the term verbs and mechanics. Now, usually mechanics is a term that is more common in the game industry, but some people prefer verbs. Verbs in the real sense of grammatic, something that give the sense of action. So in English, anything that ends in ing, like jumping, shooting, moving, these are game verbs. We need to express each verb is basically a mechanic. Sometimes a verb can be more than a mechanic because shooting might contain things like reloading, aiming, and so on and so on. Of course, as always, you can go zoom in and say shooting. Sorry, zoom out and say shooting, and then zoom in and say aiming, reloading, weapon type, and so on and so on and so on and so on. Are we thinking just the verbs the character owns or the player as well? For example, our character might fight, but the player might strategize. Now, this is a fantastic question. Super, thank you for asking it. Now, in our case, we need to think what kind of game is that. In general, when we are in the chapter here at the moment, we are thinking both, usually in the 3C, because of course, if the player does interact in that way, because strategize is a mental verb, and so it's less relevant because we can control. Because remember that From the camera, we went to the character, and then from the character, we went to the control. Strategize is something that you don't do, in the sense that you do in your mind, but there's no like activate X button to strategize, unless it's I don't know, a special mechanics in the game. So if I can input it, that's then is a verb in the free C. Let's say in that way. Now, actually, I leave it this because this is great. So we have to think, what does the player does in this game? Now, I think probably in this game we have two phases. We probably have some sort of planning, strategize phase, and then we have probably like a more horror puzzle phase, or at least that's what came into my mind. Of course, feel free to write down. I'm imagining something like, I don't know, maybe we have some sort of like map, and it's a 1v1 game, so 1 versus 1, where like player A or player one, it's like the victim, and player two is like the monster. Or maybe actually it could be also 1 versus AI. The AI is the monster, and the player is the victim. And like we can like some sort of like dividing this area into squares. And maybe we can like plan things like, I don't know, this is the end position. We have to reach this area, and this is the start position. And we kind of have like this puzzle slash phase, and we can go into this area like, you know, this is kind of like the map. Maybe here there is a tree, and we can point to the tree, but then the AI can remove the tree. Or maybe we wanted to go this direction, and then we discovered the AI put it some sort of like obstacle in our way, and in the meantime something is chasing us because it's an horror game, so we kind of need a monster to chase us. Let's see if anyone is thinking. No, so far no. Okay, so I will go with my ideas. Okay, so basically it's in real time. So we have like a map, and maybe we can find object and tools to change the map. In the meantime, this kind of like eldritch god can pop up stuff into the map and ruin our plans. So we need to get out before being eaten alive by the mysterious creature. I just call it the monster for simplicity. The monster wants to kill us, and the monster is an avatar of a creature that has god-type power, can change the world, creating bridge, destroying things, like Populus the Beginning. That's actually a good one. It's kind of like Populus the Beginning. They can, I don't know, create a lake here, and now I have to swim. So it's in real time, and I need to strategize, but at the same time it's a puzzle, because sometimes like if they put a door, they also need to put a key. Then maybe it's like in one of the next square. So there are some rules, and we need to follow them. Okay, so we have the isometric to see how the AI slash other player is interacting with the game. And then we have our first person character that doesn't want to be hit by the monster. Cool. Okay. Sounds kind of innovative. Also very difficult, to be honest. This will be a nightmare to to balance as a game. Okay, so once again, for simplicity purpose, at the moment we're just thinking as the character that is the victim and needs to check the map, because otherwise we will never finish in time with 1 hour. So kind of verb we have, let's see if someone wrote something. Okay, let's suppose our focus is having a team to control. The character are like minions, not so important, but during the game we need to spend resources. So if they die, it's a problem. Okay, so no, a main character is not characterization is needed. So no main character. Okay, so we don't have a game character. Okay, fine. Okay, let's go with minions. Okay, in this case, we probably have minions to control, which are probably the classic archetypes, like, I don't know, the beautiful teenager, the muscular teenager, the nerd teenager, I don't know, that kind of like the horror movie expert teenager. You kind of have an X amount of character. Each one of them has a certain amount of ability, and we need to make them to survive against basically an horror creature, some sort of horror creature. Okay, I think this is more in line. The developers have to make the character as close to the player. Well, no, they don't have to make the character as close to the player. Not at all. It really depends on what type of things you want to achieve. Basically, in an horror game, if you want the player to feel fear, you want to make the character as close as possible to the player because the player will immerse himself, herself, or their self into the character, into the avatar, and they will feel fear. For example, in a game like a driving game, and you don't want the player to feel the main character, which is a car. They want to feel the driver of a car, but at the same time is not really the main character driver of the car, is the car itself, the car or the one they're doing, or even FIFA. Things FIFA. In FIFA, you unless it's once again FIFA, how it's called, FIFA Heroes or whatever, the one in which you do the career. But if you're playing a normal game of FIFA, you are not playing, I don't know, as Cristiano Ronaldo. You are playing as FC Inter, AC Milan. You are playing a team. So in that case, you don't have the one specific main character, and that main character is not similar. It depends. Since we decide it's an horror game, in our specific case, we need to make the player feel connected in some way to the main character. In this case, main characters, as we have more than one, because we need to make the player feel the fear. Oh my God, I'm dying, I'm losing. Like once again in FIFA, if some of your players get hurt, they get injured, you're not feeling the pain. It's more like, oh no, now I need to put someone from my bench into the game, and that's gonna change the strategy that I'm thinking about, and this type of stuff. So it's more about the resources. You see them as pawns, not as living beings. Okay, so we have this. Let's kind of think of what kind of verbs we have for this character. So probably we have moving. I'm expecting them to move to reach an end. They probably have a special ability each. So this go into the unique selling point ego, the special ability each. Like I don't know, the beautiful can motivate the other one and give them special movement. So motivation. While the muscular guy can move things. There was what the nerd guy. The nerd guy can, I don't know, hack. I'm just inventing right now. The horror movie expert can see the position of the monster. See because he thinks like the killer, the monster. See the monster. There we go. And whatever. If we invent other, we will think some other. So they have moving. What else they could have? It's an horror game, so probably they have crouching. Crouching. Since it's an horror game, they have to have some way to kind of like hiding. That could be the crouching too, but they could have maybe a special hiding mechanic, or maybe they can have some moving, crouching, jumping. Yeah, they maybe can jump on stuff. Jumping. Maybe they can hide inside things, so hide inside. Yeah, they can pick up stuff because we say we have keys. They probably have a pickup. Pick up. Do they heal? Do you think our character do heal, or is like bam? If the monster gets you, you instantly die. No fighting, no anything. So do they fight? And if they fight, do they heal? They have like, I don't know, special way to heal. Maybe there is another character like I don't know, the school nurse, the school doctor that can heal them, something like that. While you think about it, let's move to the third part, which is death. Well, the unique selling point I will explain, even if we found it. Your character, which whatever is you, meaning that you are in control of the character, or you are moving characters more than one, should have something unique. It should have something that make it special, make it unique, make it cool. That's because you allow players to immerse themselves, think cool about their own character, and also differentiate them. Now, why it's also called the ego? Because sometimes you want to make your character unique by going against the game. So instead of being useful, like as you see, we all created characters that are useful. They motivate other, they move stuff, they act stuff, they see the monster. We could make a character that is a trolling character, basically. It's against being useful. And this creates a dynamic on the social element. Like, hey, I picked the character that is very bad. Haha, it's funny. I'm being a bit trolly. Or I chose the character that is, once again, super bad because I want to do a challenge. Can I win the game only with bad character? Classic Dark Souls. Can I beat the game level 1? Can I beat the game only with broken sword? And so on and so on and so on. So if you go unique selling point, you're going for making something cool, useful, unique. If you go with ego, you're making something to be a bit trolly, to be ineffective, on purpose. Of course, you can mix them. In the meantime, this basically is the game. So we have, once again, our map. We positionate our things, and we tell them what to do. Like, hey, move in this direction, while in the meantime, you move in this direction. But we can also take direct control of them. That's how they go in first person. And when we take direct control of them, we can move them one to one. So it's kind of like Brutal Legend. If you play Brutal Legend, but it's an horror game. So we have this unit, and we need to make them survive by completing a certain amount of objective, like in Dead by Daylight. But we can also get inside one of our unit and control directly, like in Brutal Legend. So we have the game. Let's see if someone brought any other ability that we might want to them. It makes sense to distinguish moving from running in order to create two different mechanics. Yes, absolutely correct. Yes, because this is, once again, is an horror game, so making sound and things. So yes, we have probably running, normal movement, and slow movement, which is faster than crouching, but it's like still slower than the normal movement. So yes, that's absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Arius. And I was going to say open doors or interact with object if they have keys. Yes, absolutely. Makes perfect sense. Let's make them open stuff. Maybe doors, maybe other stuff. And also let's make them interact in general. I would say that we have enough verbs. And then, once again, all of these things that we just saw, that we had just made, are design doc. We need a design doc for the movement, a design doc for the crouching, a design doc for the jumping, for the hiding, for the pickup, for the opening, for the interaction. Let's call it level interaction so it makes more sense. Level interaction. And also we need one for each of the unique ability of our character, for the motivational one, for the movement one, for the act one, for the see the monster one, for the troll one, which is like screaming. You scream and you attract the monster to your position. It can be used to sacrifice yourself for saving others, or it can be used to be a troll and just scream at the start so the monster sees you and instantly kill each one of you. This leads us to the last point of the card, which is the death. Now, the death is incredibly important. We always need to think what's happened when we lose. What is the losing condition? What happened when we lose? How we lose? This is very important because certain games are very gamey with a losing condition, and they just say, hey, you know what? You died, we reload, go to the previous checkpoint. So they kind of like a meeting, breaking the fourth wall and say, you know what, you are just in a game, stuff sometimes dies, you lose, whatever. And that's what happened. Other games are a bit meta-narrative on that. For example, Bioshock Infinite. It tells you, yeah, you're not really dying. When you're dying, you're moving to another of your another one of yourself in the multiverse, which didn't die in that specific occurrence. And some other games are very strong on their death, like, it's a permadeath, it's real, you have to start again and whatever. So I would say that probably if the monster catch one of our characters, it kills it. So character can die. But I don't see this as like I don't know, like a narrative game in which, like, oh my god, I lost my character. I see more like a Dead by Daylight, something that like you do gameplay with friends. So character dies, but not permadeath, or at least that's how I see it. If you want permadeath, you could do it. So not permadeath. I see that we lose the game when all the human character are dead or all the player character dead. So we lose when equal to all MCs dead. That's when we lose the game. And when we lose the game, we just restart. It's a game reset. The AI wins or the other player wins, whatever. Maybe like the monster is another player. It seems kind of like fairly good. It could be a narrative game, It could be something like Fire Emblem. Maybe we have like 20 character and we have to pass, I don't know, 10 maps, and then we will see who survive at the end. Like 10 days. We can set a different death layer. For example, lose a character doesn't mean game over, but sometimes the player wants to reload. Okay, makes sense. Yes, that's absolutely something we can do. We can have a reset also by player input. Go here and we say player input. We do that. Marcello, maybe one of the characters could be more important than the other, and if it dies, it's game over. Okay. That's also interesting. Maybe we can have some sort of like a king character per map. This could be like a variation, a level design variation. Certain map are like conquer the king of the hill. You have to reach a certain position. Other are like king, so all character can die except one. In this case, the scream trolling character can be really, really annoying, really problematic. That's interesting. That's a good suggestion. As you see, this game is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And we didn't even finish the controls. We are still focusing on the character. So we have the death. Now we think we're fine, and let's move to the controls. Now the controls is the easiest. Actually, is the fastest one. For each of the verbs that we thought, for each of the things that we design, we need to have a control, which literally means a button or a series of buttons that we need to press. So input. It's very important to think your input. And of course, to think your input, you have to think how this game is controlled. Is mouse, is controller, what kind of button does have the controller? So in general, you have to ask yourself if it's mouse versus controller, or is both potentially. What kind of button do we have? Also, the special features. For example, I don't know, the HD Rumble in the PlayStation 5 versus the possibility to unlock and move freely of the Joy-Con of Nintendo Switch. The fact that we can do swipes in PS5, the mouse wheel in the mouse. Certain controllers, they have special unique features, and it's always good to implement them because platform owner loves when you implement controls that have unique element, because of course for them that's marketing. It's like, hey, this game is better in us because you can control it in a cooler way. So if you can have like special feature into it, like something that came to my mind, it could be if it's PS5, when you are close to the monster, only in PS5, you hear from the controller. Of course, you hear it normally outside of the TV in Xbox and PC. In PS5, you hear it from the controller. You hear your heartbeat accelerating in a kind of like feedback to help you to understand that you're getting close to the monster. A question: before we starting this process, we need information like game audience. If it's a single player, multiplayer, absolutely great question. Yes, you should. Well, it really depends. In general, knowing your target audience is always better if you want to make a commercial successful game, because knowing your audience, like before we were discussing two things, like, hey, maybe the player decide when he's dead, maybe if one character doesn't die, or maybe if one specific character dies. Well, this basically is competition. What we're really discussing here is how punitive is the game, because if we say all character can die, it's not that punitive. If we say all character except one can die, it's not that punitive. If we're making as soon one character dies, you lose the game, is way more punitive. And making a punitive game is perceived as a more difficult game, a more challenging game, a more hardcore game. So if we're making this game and we want to sell it to an hardcore target audience or a competitive target audience or a Souls-ish, like, oh, I complete a difficult game target audience, having a very punitive death condition could be good. Vice versa, we wanted to make it into a easier, more accessible type of game, having a less punitive death condition or lose condition, it's better. And how is decided? Well, really by the target audience, if we have it. If we are doing a commercial game, we should have a target audience and say, our target audience is hardcore player. And if he's hardcore player, as soon as one dies, the team lose. Vice versa, our game is very accessible. It's almost a parodistic type of game. Cool. Then everyone needs to die before we lose the game. So if we have a target audience, is better. You don't have necessarily to have a target audience for the game. You could like design the game and then try to understand if your target audience, what is your target audience. But then in that case, you might have to accept to later modification to better fit your audience or to become a more commercially successful game, if you want to be commercially successful. Of course, if you're doing a game in a no commercial way, do whatever you want. More power to you. Then we should have an input matrix. An input matrix is a very specific type of document. If you are interested, I can show you one later. We don't have the time in another day. An input matrix to see the complexity of our inputs, and yeah, mainly that. We could have accessibility in order to, once again, God of War Ragnarok in this case instead is fantastic. We can have accessibility, how to make the game more accessible. And this is the free C. By doing this, you basically already have lots of things to do for your game, months of work potentially. This game is quite big, so I would say we probably have like a year of work just in this horribly drawn page. But at the same time, we have a very clear understanding of what is this game. And we just randomly throw out ideas. We didn't have a proper concept, but if we really expand this one in each document, and you can probably see that we already have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 6, 7, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, we have around 50 documents, not necessarily one page one, it could be bigger than one page. So we already have 50 documents to write to express our game. And we have a solid design. The game is comprehensible, the game is meaningful. Of course, if we already had like a kind of like an idea, this process is faster because you don't have to randomly throw ideas out. You're just dividing your game into atomic elements and things like that. That's very useful. But as is the free C as a methodology. Now, personally, I also like I changed the free C in my own version, which is everything that we just discussed it, but with one more C, basically another C, which is conflict. For me, the free C methodology is very useful. And this only goes for the methodology, not necessarily for the philosophy in which like you have to make the game entertaining just by doing nothing. This is just for the methodologies, for designing. And this is the idea of conflict. You can't finish the game without designing the conflict. We kind of talked about that in the previous document with the free C. We talked about there is a monster, there is something chasing you. There is something that avoiding you to reach your objective. And that is the conflict. The conflict is divided into your goal, which is divided into your narrative goal, if present, and your mechanical goal, which is literally how to win. It's the opposite of that. How do I win? Then we have the friction. I will explain these one by one. And then we have the motivation. The motivation. So your goal, as I say, is narrative and mechanical. Mechanical is how to win. For example, we said before that depends on the level that you choose, but in general, one or more character needs to reach the exit point. This is your mechanical thing. 1/more MCs to the ending point, to the end. Other game like in Super Mario, it's collect enough stars to beat the final Bowser. Once again, taking Super Mario 64. There is a question from Arius 880. We can use this kind of process to understand and estimate the work behind our game, maybe reevaluate something, or consideration on budget deadline are made before. Actually, is a great way to estimate in the sense that when you have all the things that you need to do for your game, then to each of these documents, you could in team ask your team to go to give an estimation on how long it will take to do that. How long it will take for the hiding mechanics and things and that. There is lots of talk about how to do proper estimation. If that's something that you, in the sense the chat, is interested, please tell me, and maybe next week, I will talk about that. Actually, next week, no, I will jump it because it's, but the week after, in any case, let's say the next live, I will talk about it if there is interest. But yes, that's not exactly for estimation, but it's to have the list of feature, and then for each feature, think about the estimation. The narrative goal can be whatever is your narrative, you know. In this case, like survive the killer, escape the city, call the police, escape, find the killer, whatever. I mean, it really depends on what is your narrative. You know, in technically speaking, for example, once again in Super Mario 64, the narrative is save the princess. So you have your conflict. Conflict always starts with a goal, narrative goal and mechanical goal. You need to have both because player needs to understand how to win on the rules of the game, but they also need to understand the metaphor. Even the most basic game have some sort of theme narrative goal, like save the world, save the princess, become the strongest, win the Street Fighter tournament. It's just something. Then we have the friction. The friction is basically a series of obstacles. Now, obstacles is very important to understand that in gaming, obstacle means anything from a rock that you need from like I don't know a series of pointy things that you need to avoid up to a boss. All these things are called obstacles. High challenging obstacles are usually boss. Low challenging obstacles are usually like I don't know a moving object. Highly interactive obstacles are usually boss. Low interactive obstacles are usually like level design stuff, like a hole in the ground that you need to jump over, a series of spiky things that you don't have to touch. So we need obstacle. Now, very important, obstacles are designed based on the player verbs, on the character verbs. So for each verbs that we have, we should invent an obstacle. So if we had like the moving obstacle, we should invent, sorry, if we had the moving verb, we should have an obstacle that can be passed by moving and an obstacle that stop or make you move slower. Example, there is an object, I can move around it. There's an obstacle passed by the moving, and there is a swamp. If I got into it, I get super slow, and that's an obstacle that stops. So for each of the verb, you need to have Little Dark Soul multiplayer feature. It's great obstacle and friction, like Dark Soul multiplayer feature. It's a great obstacle and frictionality. Yes, absolutely. Dark Soul multiplayer feature is a fantastic obstacle because it literally take all the verbs and throw them into your face because it's another player, and it tells you, hey, you know, it's literally super, super, super clever. And also, it works really well in the core loop because you die, you have to re-get your soul, and you do what you do in Dark Souls. Since we don't have the time, we finished. I'm not gonna go for each verb, but that's the idea. Let's say a block, I pass it when moving, so obstacle passed by the verb, and an obstacle that make the verb less efficient. For crouching, it could be, oh, there is a place in which I can go in unless I'm crouching. It's an obstacle passed by the verb, and an obstacle that make crouching less efficient. It could be, I don't know, something that damages you the closer you are to the terrain, like kind of like a mist, like a poison of mist. I'm losing life, so if I'm crouching, like and stuff like that. Let's just writing this one down. So this was crouching. It was classic the wall, in which we can pass beneath it, and then there is like the poison mist. When we are crouching, if we are into the poison mist, we lose life. And of course, boss are unique obstacles. They usually are designed specifically against something like I don't know, this boss needs to be hit in the head, and so you need to learn how to throw object very specifically and things like that. And finally, we arrive to the last part of the conflict, which is motivation. And motivation is once again divided into narrative motivation and mechanical motivation. Narrative motivation is what we are achieving from a narrative point of view. what is the thing that we are doing, what is the mystery that we are solving. In this horror game, it could be, who is the killer, who is the mysterious creature, where does the mysterious creature come from. It's a question, really. It's something that the player should want to have an answer to it in order to progress. It's like, oh, like I want to know that. I want to know how these things work. How does it do it, and so on and so on, and so that's something that can be very, very useful. In our game, and I say, could be the killer, narrative wise, since we escaped, or like who will survive. If we say that if this game was narrative, it could be who will survive. From all our character, who will survive, who will reach the end. If our game was more competitive oriented, since we're still thinking about the two possibility, it depends. It could be like a social experiment. What is the reason behind it in Hitman? Even think about Hitman. There is some basic narrative, some basic things, the mystery behind it. The mechanics, it's very simple. So this is the why question. The why, the who, um, because it's really the mystery. Let's call it in this way. And of course, the more we progress into the game, the more the mystery should be solved. Of course, sometimes the mystery also get a plot twist. And it's like, haha, you thought this, but instead was that. And it's fine because basically you're changing the things. The motivation in a mechanical way is basically the self-determination theory and the progression of the game, the mechanical progression. So I don't know, do you have stat? Do you buy things? Do you buy cosmetics? Or do you unlock new map? Do you unlock new character? And for the self-determination theory, once again, it's super long. It will take minimum an hour to explain. So it's not today, but it's a series of things that allow your character, not your character, your players to stick more to the game. So like want to replay the game. Progression can be money, not physical money in the sense, but in-game money, new area, new levels, new character, new monster, new cosmetics, new powers. I level up, I'm stronger, I'm better. It really depends on the type of game. And so this is my variation. The 4C, the 3C that we just see, 3C, 3Cs, and the 4Cs, in which we have camera character controls, and in the first series, camera character controls and conflict. I prefer this version. Of course, I prefer it because it's my version, so it's kind of like obvious that I prefer it. But in general, of course, this is my opinion, so take it with a pinch of salt. I think it's better for designing. It just works better. It gives you a better understanding of the game because you have the camera, the character, the controls, and the conflict, which kind of like close everything. You could even make it into the 5Cs, but which you add the core loop. But the core loop is just like mixing all the things together. It's not really a C, it's just thinking how these things mix together. But that could be the things that you do after conflict. You're thinking, okay, now I have conflict and I have all these other new documents that I have to do, how all these things links together into the core loop. Of course, we had 50 documents before, so now we have something like 52, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We probably, if we had to describe every single obstacle and stuff like that, we probably had something like 100 documents to write. But in this 100 single document, we had the entire game. And that's it. So we went not even that long because we started like at 2, 3, and now we are 7. So thank you for following the stream as always. I would say next week no stream because basically I have to work Wednesday because I have to do something on Tuesday, so everything just basically moved one day earlier. So we will see the week after. If you have any idea or any question or anything for the future live stream, feel free to ask. I'm always happy to actually do specific stream for your needs, for your question or anything. And have a great day. Bye.